Okay, so we've got the Harley Benton here, and we're going to go over some of the quality issues with it. Some people get put off by maybe getting a terrible guitar. Some people say they get great guitars. How long have I had this one? I've got this one around December 2015. I'll do a bit of close up on the iPhone camera. Try to get the lighting as good as possible. So let's have a look around here. The fit and finish on this one seems to be pretty good. Not too unhappy. How well can you see the fret ends here? You know, I mean, they're not perfect, but you get what you pay for, right? I mean, the nut was cut quite well on this one, I think. You know, the action's nice and close to the first fret, which is always important for good action. There's been some conjecture about whether these have photo flame tops, but I'm pretty sure that's a veneer. You can see the grain changing in the light. I mean, it costs more to fake that than it would to just put a veneer on it. Control knob's quite nice. It's quite cheap plastic. Right, we'll turn her over and have a look. You'll notice that I have not put anything on here. The guitar was £116. I own it. If it gets a scratch on it, it's only going to bother me. If it bothers you, then sorry about that. Okay, so we got the mahogany on the back. So it's solid mahogany. I don't think it's weight released because this thing is heavy. We'll go into the woods in a bit later. So let's go over sort of like the grain. I was quite lucky with this one because I seem to get a two-piece top, two-piece body. Get that to focus a bit better. You can just see down the middle there. It's a nice glossy finish. No orange peel on there. Let's see in the light. Neck joint's pretty tight. The old vintage style tuners. Okay, so before we take anything apart, I don't think I'm going to do any playing in this video, to be honest with you. I think we'll do this as two separate videos where this one will take it to bits, take some measurements, have a look at the construction of it close up when the parts are out and stuff like that, and then we'll do another video on the sound and the tone and the play and how it feels and all that kind of stuff. So let us start by taking the strings off, I guess. Do want to try and save these. Tell you what, it's pretty boring watching someone take strings off, isn't it? So we'll skip forward, I think, to when I've done it. Okay, so we're back. No strings. Tailpiece. This is, yeah, I mean, it's not that chunky, but it's not terrible. Most importantly, I don't really feel any like really sharp edges on it. Hopefully you can see that in the casting there. It's all pretty smooth. Yeah, seems okay. Fits into the posts nicely. No issues there. Let's unscrew these posts. Okay, maybe that. So they were wound right down. Not too critical. There was enough of an angle going over the tailpiece there to. Quite nice long threads. I mean, the thing is with these guitars, I mean, I can't believe you can really get them this cheap, you know. It just seems mad to me that you can spend, I think this one was £119, and it's quite a nice guitar, you know. Let's take this out. I mean, this does feel cheaper. Actually, I think these just pop off, don't they? So no real need to adjust that. Now, this does feel a little bit less well made, and it's got some burring on the saddles. Excuse the dodgy fingernails. You know, but you could swap that cheaply. I watched Tony Mackenzie's video on his one, and he seems to get a really badly fitted tailpiece. I can't say this one's that bad, actually. So the inserts into the body were rattling around with this, and they are stuck in nicely. So if I just take this out here, you can see how obviously the top's got a carve on it, so you know that you can get your fingernail under one side, but that's not an issue because they're buried deep into the wood. You can see a bit of the lacquer on this one, but it's still a tight fit. That's not coming out easily. So yeah, not too unimpressed with that, to be fair. Yeah, not too bad. So what about measurements? I think we're talking normal scale on these, so it would be 24 3/4 inch scale. Let's check the spec online at Thomann. And Harley Benton. Funny thing is, if you type in Harley Benton Les Paul, they just come up. You don't need to know the names of them. So I believe mine is an SC. Is it an SC? So look at this one. Is that the same spec? Nope. So they all seem to be much of a muchness. Oh, that's my one there. So we've got it's the Harley Benton SC450 Plus. So it's gone up a little bit in price since. So now we're talking £131. I believe the shipping's free on them. It's the UK. So scale 628mm, which we can tape measure. do own a tape measure. Okay, back with the tape measure, and we were looking at 628 millimeters, so that's going to be to the nut, from the nut to the bridge. So let's quickly just put that back on and have a measure. The high E at the moment, this is how it came from the factory. The high E at the minute seems to be about halfway through. So we go with that, and we're on 629 millimeters, which is just over 24 3/4 inches. I guess I better get a close up of that for you all. Grab this in here. Sorry, this isn't going to be like a really fast-paced video or anything. I'm just trying to be thorough, get all the details, you know. So hopefully, if you get, I feel like I've been lucky and got quite a nice example of one of these. But you know, you can see what you get if you get a good one. So hopefully, you can see that it's coming up just over 629 mil. If we look at 629, you're at the 24 3/4 mark. So yeah, we are looking at an accurate Gibson scale length, which is nice. Another measurement that people are interested in, or the dimensions of the neck, and we can check that. So according to the website, we should be looking at 43 millimeters at the nut, and just calibrate my calipers. So we're looking at 43 millimeters at the nut, and what do we get? So I'm going off the fingerboard, not the nut itself. That's inches. And we're getting 42.55. So the tolerance there is 0.45 of a millimeter. Again, let's make sure we're getting this for everybody. So you can see that my calipers are on 0. Just going onto the nut there. Okay, well look, here we go. 42.95. So pretty accurate. We'll do the same at the bottom, at the 22nd fret. Just go the end, just literally on the fret there, and we're talking 57.25. 12th fret, probably going to be, I was going to say the average, but it wouldn't be the average, would it, between the two? So we've got 52.07. Thickness at the 1st fret. Sorry for the old shaky cam. So we're talking about 22.55 at 12th fret. At 24.66. So yeah, not a skinny neck, not a massive neck. Just check that middle one again, because I know that the Ibanez necks are really thin and they come in at about 20 or 21 mil or something. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean I find it quite comfortable to play. It's not a problem. what should we take off next? Let's take some tuning pegs off. So, I'm looking for a small Phillips. I think, you know, I'll just take one off to start with, see how cleanly it's cut. You can assess how well the peg is manufactured. Further. So I think it's got a ferrule stamped into the headstock. Is that easy to come out? Yeah, that come out quite easy. Okay. Yeah, quite nice. Can't complain there. I'll just set this back down and grab the other camera again. So you can see the hole cut in the headstock. Got a greasy fingerprint on there. Seems fine. I'll grab that ferrule so you can see how that popped in and how tight it was. So it goes in, just popped in nicely. Nice interference fit. You know, that wouldn't fall out unless you pick it out. On the back, we're looking at. Let's get this in the light nicely. Amazing how much difference lighting makes. So they've drilled through from the front, I believe, and it's punched through the back, and the tuner hides it. Nothing too major there. Let's take a look at the tuning peg itself. Back into the good light. So here's the tuning peg itself. Oops, still got a screw in there. Okay, so if I shake that around, it's got a bit of play in it. That is actually the tuning peg itself. Does feel a little bit. It's, you know, it's not locating on the gear that well. I think a tuner. I mean, it stayed in tune pretty well. I mean, I've used it at rehearsals and whatnot. It's been fine. But I think it would be safe to say that an upgrade on the tuners could be worthwhile. The actual feel of them is quite firm, and they, you know, they look fine. It's not a problem. They work. But I should imagine the failure on them is probably quite high. Okay, next thing to look at. Strap buttons are pretty boring. Let's have a look at the neck, the wood. So this is still from the. I've played it, kept it clean. I haven't done anything to the fretboard. I haven't oiled it. You know, it's just as it came. So just make sure that I'm really focused in here. I've played it a fair bit. I don't think the frets are particularly worn. Not too sure what the wood is. Obviously it looks like rosewood, but difficult to tell. These fret markers are in fairly tight. Let's focus that close. They've been filled in with black resin to make them look tighter. You know, bearing in mind that we're pretty close up here. It's not too bad. The general look it gives is pretty acceptable, to be fair. Again, this nut seems to be cut pretty well. Can't really fault it too much. So the feel of the frets down here. You know, I'm not really feeling any sharp edges particularly. You know, if you just feel gently a little bit on this fret, perhaps. But yeah, pretty good. I mean, one of the things I think might be really cool to do with this guitar, or these guitars, you know, from Thomann, is that they're a great platform for upgrading. So if you buy one and you find that it plays well and the basic neck and body and everything is, you know, fine, stable, you've got an opportunity to practice fret leveling, crowning, replacing frets, changing over pickups, control knobs, adding in circuits, cutting in a G.A.S pad, whatever you want to do. You don't really have to feel like you've ruined a really expensive guitar if you mess it up. So, you know, from that front, I don't think you can really knock these too much. Okay, let's have a look at the pickups. Let's take these off and so there weren't any problems with screws or anything being floppy or, you know, feel like they're coming out horribly or that the holes haven't been piloted correctly. They all seem to be fine. So let's get a few trays and things out so I can not lose all the screws. So one of the things I'm happy to do to my own guitar is take a proper look at the wood. So let's try and get this set up somewhere where you can have a look. I wish I had a multiple set of really nice cameras to use, but we'll have to do with iPhones and one nice camera, I'm afraid. Okay, see how much slack we have on this. Not too bad. Some interesting. I think that's just the dust from the finishing is coming down the inside. Yeah, you can see the maple top in there. Okay. What I'm going to do now, I think, is pop just 2 screws back in here. So the pickup doesn't fall out. And I'm going to do one simple. We'll find out which the guitar didn't hum or have any problems with you know, 60 cycle hum or anything like that. So it was earthed properly. So what we can do with the multimeter, set to continuity, is find out which of these pins that they've grounded out to. So the ground goes to the outer of the jack. So it's that one. You can hear that quite audibly. That this one has the ground in it. So something to note, if you ever do decide to change your tailpiece round and your bridge, make sure that the ground cable is always on that lug, so that your strings are connected to ground and you keep that all cushy. Right. We'll take this control cavity off. And these are the same screws as the pickups. No, slightly shorter. Put them over there. Right, okay, one thing to note is that, yeah, it's slightly wobbly, quite easy to fall out. Oh, it's actually beveled, so I wonder if that's like something they do so they have a bit of tolerance if they mess up. So I'll just get that on this camera. I would leave this on, but you know what iPhones are like, they just run out of batteries in 2 seconds. So right, here we go. So you can see the edge of this has a bevel on it, clearly. And it means that when it goes in the hole, whichever way it goes in, I think it's just to make sure it slides in and you got a bit of tolerance in case this was cut a bit small, a bit big. You know, if the routed hole was smaller, is that in shot? Is that in frame? If the routed hole was slightly smaller, the bevel would just mean that this would sit slightly proud of the body, and it just limits the amount of fine tolerance they have to have, I guess. It's quite funny looking inside here. So, I mean, this kind of mess you get, this white stuff, you know, it's just residue from when they finished the guitar. You know, it gets polished and buffed, and they don't pay particular attention to the cavities because they get covered over. That dent in the side there, I've clearly done that myself at some point. Yeah, the controls, the pots are tiny. They're really tiny. They'll probably, I mean, they work fine. The volume on the neck pickup was a little bit crunchy, but again, I'm not too concerned. You can see the maple top there down at the bottom. It's quite clearly different colour. You can see that it's solid wood, solid mahogany, we're assuming. So sapele is supposed to be closely related to mahogany, so it might be that this is sapele. That's a whole other video, isn't it? Tonewood. I do have a plan to make a video and just do some of my own testing on the tonewood phenomenon. Personally, I don't really mind what the guitar is made out of. Again, this is beveled too. Yeah, so you know, guitar being made out of whatever. Well, that's interesting. You've got a bit of. It's like they've put some. So you can see this hasn't been shielded in here. There's no, you know, sometimes people use shielding paint or foil or copper to try and create like a Faraday cage. And there is something around here, but I don't think it's the conductive paint. You should be able to sort of see there, it is kind of matte and it's gone on afterwards, but I think, yeah, I'm thinking that someone did this. I know what they've done. So this is, you know, so you got to expect these things. If we look at this closely, if that wasn't coloured in black, so to make it look like it fits better, someone has got a Sharpie and drawn around the inside like this, gone all the way around, blah blah blah, to hide some dodgy work. So, you know, maybe their router wasn't carving properly, who knows. I mean, thing is, you don't know if it's like some guy just with a template quickly routing it out, do you? God knows how they make these so cheaply. Okay, so it's not any sort of screening there. Switch looks pretty cheap. Okay, so one thing I'm tempted to do is crack out the soldering iron and just check what value the potentiometers are. what's quite funny actually is that these potentiometers do have a little G on the back of them. I don't know if you can see this, so let's go to video. It doesn't even look like the Gibson G, but maybe we can try and find out what brand they are. Let's try and get it to focus in there. Okay, yeah, I mean in terms of electronics, we do have around connections heat shrink tubing, and the soldering is okay, it's pretty clean, so no real complaints there. So I'm thinking that we unsolder the pickups, pull them out, and take a proper look at the wood and get some values for the potentiometers, because they don't say on them what they are, so we can sort of see if it's you know in line with what you'd expect for a humbucking pickup, which should be 500k, I believe. Okay, I think we are where we were. Solder flowing. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is try to something I've learned off bigclive.com is that they quite often use lead-free solder, and it's a bit of a pain to it requires a lot of heat to get it to flow. And they definitely have used the lead-free stuff here. Okay, so I've uncoupled the bridge tone pot from the volume pot, from the bridge volume pot. So I think what I'll do now is just remove that. We'll get a value from it. They're pretty well stuck on. Like I say, you're probably going to see me bash and dink this guitar around a couple of times. You know, I've got ideas to do things with it and make it a project guitar. So please, you know, kind of refrain from, oh my god, so disrespectful to your guitar type of comments. Right. We've got not sure what value that capacitor is. Type that in online. So it's 47 nanofarads. Okay, let's have a look at what the norm would be. Interesting. Okay, so you'd normally put a 0.022 microfarad on the tone, so maybe that's something I can play around with to get some more authentic sounds. It works. Okay, so we can see now we've got the pot out as well. That, if I hold it up here, where are we? Let's focus. 500k, so that's good. I'm definitely inclined to say that they are audio taper pots and not the linear ones. You know, when you turn them up and down, it's like natural to the ear. It doesn't seem to be You know, if you've ever put a linear pot on your guitar by accident, you'll know that you put it on like volume 1 on the pot, you know, it indicates 1 and suddenly you're at full volume. So that's not the case with these. These are fine. We're at 522K. So not as accurate. Some pots have a so I was just in the wrong range on the meter. I shouldn't have been on the 20k range, and that seems ridiculous now that I was. Okay, so how can I prop this up so you can see? See the meter? So you can see that it's 522k. Quite a bit out. Anyway, back to the guitar. This is my got a load of radius gauges. Let's have a look, see which one matches. So this is, let's get this out there as well for you, so you can see what's going on. So it's not going to be 20 inches. That's way too flat there. 9.5 this one is. That's a pretty good match. A little bit of tolerance in the middle, which that would suggest that maybe we are a bit flatter than 9.5. 10 fits quite well. Just check down here actually. Yeah, I'm going to go with a 10-inch radius. You can see that on the camera there. Seems to be pretty good. Let's try one more. So the next one in my set would be, I've got 12 there. 12. I don't think it's 12. I think we'll start to see a bit of a gap at the edges. A little bit of a gap at the edges. It could be a 12 actually, somewhere between 10 and 12 inches. It sounds like a massive difference, but actually when you're holding these two together, these two gauges, it's very slight. So again, let's go back to the specs, see what it says. Fretboard radius 350 millimeters. 350 millimeters is going to be 12 inches, isn't it? So oh, that's interesting. 350 is bizarrely is 13 3/4 roughly, which I don't have a gauge for, but I do have a 14, and I wouldn't say it was 14 because I don't know how well that picks that up, but you can see on the edges there's something sharp. Now I'm in the light. It's quite difficult to demonstrate, but it's okay. You can see here there's a gap on either side, which suggests to me that this is too flat, that radius gauge, whereas when we have the 12 on there, you seem to have a nice tight gap across it. So I'm inclined to say there that there, you know, 12-inch radius is obviously nearly 300 mil. So what is that? That's 304 mil, 305 mil. So they're out of tolerance there on their radius by approximately 40 mil. So that's not right. But having said that, it's quite a flat radius. You know, I've got a Strat and that's got a 9.5-inch radius, and you can, if you set your action too low, it will choke on big bends, and this doesn't seem to. And what's quite nice about this on the, I mean, anyone who's had a Les Paul will know, what's quite nice is when you've got the shorter scale length and the flat radius as well, it makes bending incredibly easy. So don't need those gauges anymore. Oh, actually, what would be quite interesting to know is what the radius on the tailpiece is like. Wouldn't you say? So that's because you can't set this to account for the radius. So, like for example, on a Paul Reed Smith guitar that I own, the tailpiece, the bridge, is preset at the radius of the neck. So I'm just going to do this by eye first, and then I'll show the camera what's going on. So what do we say? 12 was closest. It's flatter. The tailpiece is flatter than. So if I can get the edge of that to line up with the computer, then you'll be able to see a bit better, hopefully. So if I just lift that up by hand, right, let's try this. So excuse me if it's all shaking around, but when you come in with that, can see you can definitely see that the tailpiece, there's some air in the middle. How well is that done? Oh, yeah, they're not spot on. They're not spot on. I better just film that for everyone as well, because I might get a load of flack. Right, if we just try and get that. Right, let's come this way. Okay. So again, shaky cam. That is pretty good. The actual top of the nut. And like I say, the slot's been cut pretty well. You know, it's nice and close to the first fret on each string. Yeah, it's been cut really nicely, that one. Something I've just noticed actually now that I've taken all the strings off is that I think I can just. It's loose on one side. Oh, there you go. It just comes off. It has been glued with something. We could do the old Paul Reed Smith test, couldn't we? And go, hear that? It sounds like throwing multiple pieces of plastic on a table. Now, I do think that the harder this is, the harder the anything that's got contact with the string and how hard it is will affect how the string rings out. And how it sustains, and that's where my belief is with the whole tonewood thing. You know, I think the density of all of this is key to how well your string sustains. And the hardness of this is probably a bigger factor than the species of the wood. That's not to say that it doesn't have some sort of impact on the whole system, but like I say, I've got an idea for a video regarding the whole tonewood thing, and everyone's tired of it by now. But I kind of feel that, you know, you go into a music shop and you can definitely pick up two of the same guitar. I've done it myself. When I was younger, I really wanted to have an Ibanez Gem, and you know, I picked up two. They were identical except for the colour, but the spec was the same. So it was the white Gem 7V and the blue Sparkle one. And as far as I can tell, and I'm usually quite good with the details of these sort of things, but they were the same. They had the same pickups, the same everything, same spec. Just one's blue, one's white. Yeah, and the blue one was much nicer. It was a much nicer guitar, for whatever reason. But I don't think that's just the wood, you know. I think that's all sorts of things. The way the neck pocket had been done, you know, it could be just that the action was slightly better. The way the frets felt, it could have been the way the pickups were wound. It was just had a nice resonance with the amplifier. But essentially they were the same guitar, but they did sound a little bit different and feel a little bit different. And the way something feels and the way it sustains and vibrates in your hands can be misleading. But you should trust it. You should just go with the one that sounds and feels best to you, make you play better. Okay, anyway, enough dribbling on about flipping tonewood, eh? You'd all start forming opinions about me before I've even got 10 videos on my channel. Okie dokie. Let's take the rest of these off. And I need something a bit more juicy than that. So I'm going to get some softening. Try not to mark the thing up. So one thing that's really worth keeping hold of is old t-shirts, because you can use them to clean your soldering iron with, or clean your computer, or whatever, you know. Don't go out buying cloths. Ooh, that's close. Okie dokie. So, what should we do? Let's get all the electrics out of this. That's fallen on the floor. And, yeah. So using Mr. Big Clive's technique, flow a bit of solder onto your iron, make it a bit easier to, you know, you've got a bigger surface area that you're landing on that pad of solder with in the back of the cavity. So I think, you know, we've discovered that these are 500k pots, and they obviously have a tolerance issue. So I think we can leave that there. You can see that they're cheap, so you know, a worthwhile upgrade probably would be to buy some new potentiometers. ground wires going up. So I may well speed some of this up. I may have speeded it up already. Who knows? Just what it is, I guess. It's a great tip, that, from Mr. Big Clive. So, alright, you might want to have a look at this. So, hey. So here's the jack. I mean, it's, what can you say? It's looks like quite a cheap part, but it works. Does the job. Again, not too tricky to replace for something better quality. So I mean, overall, I'm quite for these guitars, especially for a learner. I mean, I have to go back and think about what was available to me when I was learning to play guitar, and this is much better, and probably like 2/3 of the price or less. You know, I mean, I think that the first guitar I had was the classic black one from the Argus catalogue. And then my second guitar was a Hohner something Strat copy type thing. Had a humbucker in the bridge, 2 single coils, and whilst I loved it, it was dreadful. The body was made of plywood, and at one stage when I got my first 4-track to record little demos and things down onto, I pulled the bridge right out of the body, so it definitely wasn't what you'd say a quality guitar. And you know, we've got solid hardwood a maple guitar for £130 at the moment. I got mine a bit cheaper before, but okay. So here's the bridge pickup. It's got a big B on the back of it. It's quite a slim unit. I'd say these pickups aren't like really hot either. They're quite warm, open sounding and warm. Yeah. I think there's evidence in there that it's been potted. Haven't noticed any, yeah. So that's something you can probably just see if I just scratch away in there. You can see the wax. Oh, help if I was in front. You see the wax dropping out there. So they're potted. Yeah. It would also seem that I've run out of memory on the card, so we've lost a load. Okay, so I'm filming on here at the minute. I'm going to have to change the other camera because that's dropped off at some point, so I'm going to have to find out where. Okay, pause for a minute. Okay, we're back. So we're back. Sorry about that. We lost memory. It's amazing how much memory these cameras get through. Let's have a little look. Oh, why is that not coming through? Just need a tug. It was still connected. A tiny little. Tiny little ground which I didn't see. There we go. Okay, so front pickup is out. Whoa. So, oh, we're on. Yep. This one's denoted by an N. You can see that. On there. Feels about the same. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's, obviously the windings and whatnot inside, and maybe the magnets are different, but it doesn't seem to be any different in weight or thickness or anything like that. Okay, so how about we have a look inside here? So we can see that the neck tenon is a bit short of. So here's a scalpel for. You can see these. Yeah, it's a good 1.5 millimeters short of where it's supposed to go. Can't say I've noticed it's made much of a difference to anything. Where are we getting the most light? So you can see that it's solid wood, and as to whether we've got veneer, let's just sort of scratch some of this away. So as you can see up the top there, this lacquer is very hard. Nice sound, hey? Okay, so we're getting through to so it's difficult to say. I mean, I can see. It's difficult to see on the camera. I can see that here and here, the two bits of grain running this way, and they don't match with the top there. So I'm going to say that it's a veneer, and I don't think that it's a photo finish myself. Let's sort of try coming at this a bit diagonally. Like, this looks hideous on the funny thing, I've seen people do this on YouTube, and on camera it just looks dreadful. But in real life I really am skimming a tiny little piece of this. It's quite thick So obviously knowing that the pickup ring is going to cover this up. So yeah, I think you can see that white line there. That's something that the camera does show up a bit better. I think that's the grain of the veneer, and then that there. So this section here is, I'm sort of scratching away at. There's a bit more lacquer there. But that section there would be maple top, and then you've got that tiny little thin line there, which is your veneer, and then you can see the lacquer, and that is really, yeah, quite happy with that. Quite happy with those findings. So yeah, I mean, what else is there to see about this? Use my little cloth and just kind of clear this out a bit. And actually, you can see how thick the. So that's something we can measure. How thick the actual. Maple cap is on the guitar. So let's bring this back over. So now I've cleaned that away. Hopefully you can see in there that the, you can use my pointing device. You can see where it ends, the maple top. So let's measure that, give or take. So we get the caliper on the edge, go down to roughly, let's try, so it's difficult to see, then go to right there, about 12.7 millimeters. So I'm going to say that that's probably, give or take, a millimeter or a little bit more. Give it, thicker in places than others. It might be a bit thicker down here, for example, than it is over here. But we can see what's going on there quite nicely. So, yeah. Something that might be quite interesting is unscrewing the little pick guard and seeing if there's the same care and attention to the finish. Underneath it, should think it would be the same. Why wouldn't it be? Yeah, it's okay. Under there. Let's get my cloth. So that's the first time I've taken that off, and maybe these things get tested before. I don't know if I'll be able to get this on camera. No. No, you can't see it. There's some light sort of plectrum marks, if you like, which I can see, but the camera can't. Where it looks like someone's tested it before the pick guard went on, perhaps. I don't know. yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not a real Les Paul, clearly. But can you argue for the money? I find it really difficult to, you know. Something I've just noticed in here. Which is where the binding is. You can. And there's two things we can see here actually. So where the binding is. Excuse the reflection of the lights, right? But you can see, how do we get this nice? You can see a bit of the maple top there, and also something I forgot to mention. Is you can see that the heel of the neck has another piece veneered onto it, so they can make this out of a thinner piece of wood. Now, I don't mind that. So you can see it just up there. You know, saves wood. Means you can cut this neck because you've got a scarf joint here as well. You can cut this neck out of less timber because rather than needing to have, so you've got the whole neck, and obviously you've got quite a break angle on the headstock, which means that this whole piece of wood would have had to have been approximately, I'm just doing this by eye, but you would have had to have it 3 inches by perhaps 3 by 3.5 to get the whole neck cut out of one piece, right? But as it stands, where the scarf joint is, the longest part of the scarf joint to the roughly where the tenon goes is about 18 inches, and that only needs to be 25-26 mil thick actually, and that's even including the fretboard, so you know it could actually probably be 20 mil thick to create just the neck, right? And then you know you need a piece of wood about 4.5 inches by 55 mil to stick on the end of it. Then another piece of wood that is about 10 inches long and let's say 1.75 inches or so, which you'd stick where that diagonal is on the end. So you save an awful lot of timber by doing that, and it is strong. You know, you don't feel like this is going to fall apart any day soon. You know, it's fine. So yeah, I mean we've taken it apart quite a bit. We've measured it. A lot of it marries up with the specs on Tonewood's website. There's clearly some cosmetic differences from the design. I think they might have had some trouble from Gibson in the past, and they've made this sharper. You know, this sort of all-access joint here is not a feature on a Gibson. Well, it never used to be. Funny enough, I think they've brought out a range that have got that now, haven't they? But yeah, stripped down like this, you know, if you were to load this up with Gibson USA parts, better nuts. You know, I was poking fun at the tonewood thing and the material the nut's made from, but those things do make a difference. I just don't think it's as much the wood as people would like to believe it is. But this nut is, you know, that's hard. That's hard stuff. You can hear that. You know, if you drop something, I'm trying to look around my area for something that's similar but softer, but you can tell that it's hard material. And I'm sure if you bought you know, the self-lubricating nuts, the tusk ones and all this sort of stuff, I'm sure that they're harder and slipperier and do a better job. But yeah, I mean overall I'm quite impressed really. I don't have many arguments, so I'll put it back together and stay tuned for the next video, I guess, where I will play it and yeah, we'll go from there. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. You know, I hope it wasn't too painful and long. Until next time.